This is Keep Up. I'm your host, Cynthia Dill. It's Wednesday, March 12th. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio. It's good to be back. We're here tonight with another gender bender from the state of Maine. That's right, more on gender because we just can't get enough. And tonight's show is about what to tell the kids about President Trump's two-gender rule. Perhaps you've heard of it, the executive order that was issued by Donald Trump mandating that from henceforth there will be two genders in America, male and female. And some people are very upset about that, especially people on the left. And, I think parents struggling with what to tell kids who have been lured into the alphabet club at school, they need to come clean. And what I mean by that is that the parents, you out there, you need to tell the kids it's not your fault. It's not your fault. There's a two gender rule. It's my fault. And what I mean by that is that it's your fault. All the people out in society who have been pushing this gender agenda, gender mania now, and it went bonkers and out of control, is overreach, and now we're seeing the consequences. But the thing is that the kids are all right. They're going to be all right. And what you need to tell them is that this classification system that we now have in America based on two sexes, male and female, is grounded in science and works for 99.9% of the people and allows for an organized, civilized society. It's a scientific classification system based on science that societies use, and in our case, has produced a society that's more free for women and for transgender people as well as others. We have more freedoms. We have the longest lasting democracy. And so to the kids, they're going to be okay. And not only that, but what a relief. This LBTGQ alphabet club. Yes, I know I made a mistake. I'm aware of that. But I call it the alphabet club because it's been oversold. And I think the kids are realizing that they've really been scammed. And I hold all of us responsible, but especially the left, because it was really the left that kind of screwed up the childhood for these kids, right? Injected into childhood all this sexual identification, orientation, gender mania. Kids don't need that, right? And especially now, when here in America, the laws are such that everybody has the right to express themselves, to be themselves, to marry whoever they want. There's no need to be labeled. Play the field is the advice to kids, right? The Alphabet Club has been oversold because it turns out it's not that fun to sign up to be part of a so-called marginalized community. Despite all the rainbows and glitter, I mean, there was really a transition, right? You felt it, from celebrating pride, from celebrating diversity to really promoting it. And it was after the Obergefell decision. I've said this before, and I think the social scientists will prove me right. And that is that after the right to marry whomever you want was decreed from the Supreme Court, alleluia, we now live in a society so free, everyone's equal. You just find somebody to love and you can get married. You can be joined in a legal union that will provide really a sense of security and fulfillment. And that's great. And everybody is welcome to that table, regardless of sexual orientation. So that's the law, highest law of the land. And here in Maine, we have a law so expansive that in 2005, we included in the Maine Human Rights Act sexual orientation as a protected class, a protected status. And so, as a transgender person, you had all rights of anyone else to be free from discrimination in employment and in housing. And isn't that wonderful? Except it wasn't good enough because the marriage decision really put to rest what the left had going on for political causes. Sure, there's climate, but that field is saturated, right? There's not a lot of space in the climate space, if you know what I mean, dude. But when it comes to gender, it was like, wow, what's next? So they went to this trans issue and really went overboard. And we went from promoting, or excuse me, we went from celebrating diversity and celebrating trans people to really promoting an agenda that all kids should consider themselves eligible for this rainbow club. It really became sort of social contagion where if you want to be part of the cool clique, you want to question your identity. And in privileged communities like mine, you have kids, you know, white, rich kids who have been led to believe that they deserve a trophy for having the courage to express their gender identity when I don't think that that's really the trajectory of the strongest nation on earth, and it's proved to be incredibly depressing for these kids. This campaign to have to self-identify or have your friends identify you with some label connected to sexual orientation in childhood is bonkers. It's nuts. Don't do it. Don't label yourself. Play the field. Play the field because adolescence is really by definition a journey of self-identity, and you got along with adolescence, the injection naturally of a lot of hormones, a lot of messages from your peers. It's a journey that has been documented in novels, and I think the message to kids is you're gonna be on this journey, you're gonna have so many experiences, you're gonna have relationships with different friends, different lovers, and not all of this you have to wear on your sleeve. You don't have to announce, in your introduction, "Hi, I'm Jenny, and I'm non-binary," and, it's it's been an oversold agenda that leaves people feeling depleted, without dignity. The language, the gender jargon is really oppressing and depressing. Like, who said I was cisgender? Who made that decision? Was that a bunch of, um, I don't know, progressives, I imagine, sitting around trying to figure out what it is other than the word normal to describe someone who's, at one with their body? We went from just being a woman to being a cisgender woman. First of all, if I had to make up a word about women, I would not spell it CY. Cis should be SIS. But I don't want to be a cisgender. I'm a woman. And the definition of woman now has been changed so drastically in the law in Maine that people are pushing back. We're not going to stand it anymore. We're not going to take it. And when I say we, I mean like society. We've had it. We've had it with the gender nonsense. We've had it with the gender overload, the oversharing about gender. We don't need to know who you have sex with, who you like to have sex with, who your sexual predilections are. All we need to know is, are you single, are you married, and what do you like to do in your free time? So the kids, you tell them it's not your fault. The two gender rule is something that is um, it's easy to deal with. It makes things run smoothly. It protects women's rights so that women can have single sex spaces separate from men. This conflation between women and men with gender dysphoria is depressing for a lot of women. We don't want to be made the equivalent of somebody with a disorder. And let's face it, we were all told that transgenderism is from gender dysphoria, which is a diagnostic, it's a diagnosis in the DSM. And now in Maine, you have a legal right to gender care. So this is a medical condition that men have if they are trans women. And so you can't blame some women like me for saying, "Whoa, trans women are trans women. Women are women." And the two, they're not the same. It's like saying, 2 plus 3 equals 6. It's so um the kids are gonna be okay because they're gonna know the truth that they don't have to decide their sexual orientation. They don't have to advertise it. They don't have to disclose it in their childhood. Let's take the sexual orientation out of its childhood. Let them grow up, discovering on their own who they are without enticing them into this club that is about marginalized communities, because that's not really what binds people together. And let's face it, there's not a whole lot of things in common. The white gay guys in my community are not necessarily a marginalized community, especially if they want to get in politics. And if you have two kids who grow up in an affluent town under the same roof with the same parents, a boy and a girl, and they both fall in love with beautiful women, doesn't make your daughter part of a marginalized community. It's just so it's the truth about the Alphabet Club for kids is that, there's not a lot of there. It's it's been oversold by parents, by adults. It's your fault, it's my fault, but now we've gotta stop it, and, this two-gender rule might provide some clarity and a peace, just a break. You say to little Johnny, "Yeah, when you were born, there was a doctor, and they gave you male at birth because you had these body parts, and, when you grow up, you might discover that this rule is a little bit oppressive, and if you run for office in this wonderful country and you wanna change things, well, you go for it, but in the meantime, don't worry about it. Play the field, find somebody to love, find some friends, love your family, express yourself." So that's pretty much the word, to kids, at least as far as I'm concerned, because, in Maine, we have an Equal Rights Amendment that's coming up for a vote, and the Equal Rights Amendment would put into the Maine Constitution that gender expression, not transgenderism, but gender expression is a constitutionally protected right. So a state or a town, a small town in Maine, can't deny anyone anything on the basis of their gender expression. If I said sexual earlier, that was a mistake. It's gender expression. That's going to be codified into the Constitution. That's just that's like an open door to total chaos. There will be no protected sex spaces for women. There's another law that has been passed already in the state of Maine, an act to protect pregnant workers. And that law originally was written for women because, women are the ones who get pregnant. But recently, woman was erased, crossed out, and replaced with person because as a society, we're supposed to normalize that a trans man could be pregnant. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I think if you're born a woman and you have a belief that you're a man while giving birth, then you might want to rethink parenting as a choice. I think that the law should not welcome that kind of chaos. The law should not anoint that construct because that's a diagnosis, right? You can't be with child, okay, with your breasts bursting with milk and identify as a man. I'm sorry, I know that. I know that. I have personal knowledge. I think I qualified as a witness in that regard. So, Maine has gone overboard. There's gender mania, but we're fighting back. Women, girls are real, and it's not discriminatory to want to be defined by who we are. We're saying no to cisgender. Nope. Uh-uh. That's that kind of jargon that to try to say that, oh, cisgender is people born in alignment, their mind and body, as opposed to transgender, making them some sort of equivalent. No, no. Um, if you're a woman, you're a woman, and being a feminist is not being trans exclusive. So we got to reject the gender jargon. We got to get rid of the alphabet click that's really being oversold to kids in school who are just trying to get through school. Okay, these kids need to play the field, find someone to love, find themselves, make some friends, love their families, help their community. This whole definition of community has been stolen by the Alphabet Club, right? They think that once you identify one of these characteristics, then you belong to the clique, and therefore you're separate from what had been your community. That's not good. That's not healthy, and that's what makes people lonely, and that's why I believe there's a higher incidence of depression and suicide among these kids who have early on been told, "Oh, well, oh, you feel like you might be a boy? Oh, why don't we change your birth certificate? Why don't we change your name? Why don't we make a big stinking deal about it and announce to the world what your sexual orientation is when you're 10?" and then you're stuck, and maybe you made a mistake, maybe you wanna change your mind. So that's from Maine, we're struggling here. We are struggling. We have, passed several laws that really encroach on the rights of women and girls, that really undermine women and girls, and we're being kinda led to believe that we're bigots if we don't buy this nonsense hook, line, and sinker, and now we have a House of Representatives who has censured a state representative for speaking out on this issue. We're gonna have an ERA, an Equal Rights Amendment, that has been manipulated to no longer say, we're gonna have equal rights on the basis of sex, to say, "Oh, equal rights in the Constitution on the basis of gender identity and gender expression." Okay, gender identity has been added to the Human Rights Commission, and it's gobbledygook. Gender expression is not a legal term. But, the community of experts, like all 3 of them, will say, "Oh, well, gender's expression is just, whatever you express." So let's in high school, you don't think boys might express as girls, and cheat sometimes? You don't think in a prison, in a shelter? You don't think on a sports team when there's scholarships involved? Oh, no, people wouldn't do that around sports. Nobody would cheat to get ahead in sports. We have doping rules, right? You can't take drugs and do sports, and yet you can automatically have an additional, you know, level of testosterone and be considered a girl. So, trans women are trans women. Trans people deserve our love, our respect. They deserve equal protection on the laws, but they do not deserve to usurp the identity of women. So to equate women and trans women is identity theft. It's identity scam, and I'm not gonna take it. I'm not a cisgender. I'm a woman. Hear me roar. And that's it. Till next time. This is Cynthia Dale sign off. Take care.